So hi, good afternoon to you all. So I'll be moderating this session on behalf of the organizers. Firstly, we are very grateful. I think I speak for all to Vikesh ji, Shirish ji, and the entire Oak Pledge publishing team, Vidhi Utsav team. I think such kind of a niche event whereby topics of such diverse and very relevant nature aren't covered anywhere as yet. So they deserve a lot of applause for that. As you've been already told who is there on the panel and what the theme for this discussion is, I think this is very relevant in the present social media age, and it couldn't have been a better panel than this. We've got, of course, Deepika. She's there on all platforms, all social media platforms, and voicing her opinion. Tanya is primarily there on Instagram, and she's got a very huge following. Her content is watched in every corner of the country, I'm sure abroad also. Jayant has been very active, as we all know, on LinkedIn, guiding people, sharing his thoughts, and creating a public opinion. And Sachin ji is an influencer in his own realm because he is into the legal corporate field. And of course, being an influencer is not limited to social media, as we would of course understand today. So right away, we'll begin with the discussion, and I'll request all the speakers one by one to just give their views, 5 minutes views about what they think of the topic. Starting with Deepika, please.
Thank you so much, Suvir, and thank you for having me on this panel. I think, like you rightly said, social media is the most important thing in today's times, I guess. Our opinions, our thoughts, our experiences, everybody is so hooked on to social media that it impacts every sphere of our life, I believe. I think of social media as a great platform or a tool for taking responsibility and being a better citizen of the country. My content is primarily dedicated to getting people justice, and I use a social media platform to actually take voice of those who are not really heard to the right platforms, to the right authorities, and my I would say life on social media is all about helping people, and that's what I use it the most for.
Hello everyone, great to be here. So when I started making content about 4 years back, there were no lawyers making content on Instagram. And I remember I used to have a bunch of lawyers reach out to me and, pass sarcastic comments saying, कुछ कर नहीं सकी तो influencer बन गई. Yeah, really mean things. But now the environment is such that even if you're doing something in your life, you want to be making content. Because that's the kind of exposure you're getting making content. And that's the kind of, it helps you with your work. It helps you get exposure in parts of the country that you don't even have access to. So you'll be very surprised to know that from the past 4 years, I've been living in a village in JNK and making content. But I've been invited everywhere across the country for panels, for awards, for functions, on news media, news channels. So it doesn't matter where you are. That's the kind of exposure you get. I used to sit in one room in my house and make content, but I've been on NDTV, I've been everywhere. So I think this topic is very, very relevant in today's times, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. Thank you.
Wonderful. Jayant, please.
First of all, thank you, Vidhi Utsav, for having us here. This is the second year in the running, and I'm happy to be a part of the second Sanskaran, if I say so. The topic is of great importance that the panelists have been chosen for. Legal influencer. Now, just a show of hands from the audience, आप में से कितने लोगों ने illegal influencers के बारे में सुना है? देखा होगा. Latent कितने लोग देखते हैं? So are they legal influencers or illegal influencers? That becomes a question, right? क्या चीज़ आपको कैसे influence करती है? And who are we then to define the legality and the illegality of a particular fact at hand? क्योंकि courts का काम होता है fact को ascertain करना. I think when I saw the brochure for the event, I could see that the judges from the Honorable Supreme Court and the High Court were gracing the dais. And then we have other eminent members from across the country. So I think everybody who is a part of either the organizing committee, the audience, the members on the dais, everybody is an influencer in one way or the other. आप अपनी बातों से, अपनी वाणी से दूसरे को कैसे प्रभावित करते हैं, उसको हम इन्फ्लुएंस होना कहते हैं. अगर अच्छी बातें करेंगे तो ढंग से इन्फ्लुएंस होगा समाज. अगर बातों में गड़बड़ होगी तो उसके लिए कानूनी प्रावधान है. जैसे मैंने पूछा लेटेंट का उदाहरण आप सबसे, तो एफआईआर कट गई. अलाहाबादी साहब की, द फेमस पॉडकास्टर, इज इन्फ्लुएंसर, फिन इन्फ्लुएंसर, आजकल बड़े सारे टर्म्स हैं मार्केट में. पर एक इन्फ्लुएंसर हमारा स्टेट है. नाउ द स्टेट सेज इफ यू से समथिंग विच इज़ वायलेटिव ऑफ others' dignity and also Article 21, then we will influence your right to speak in the country. So I think it's going to be a very hot debate today. That we have a lot of eminent members from the panel, and again I thank Vidhi Utsav and my esteemed colleagues at the dais for having us here. And I now give the platform to Sachin ji for his words of wisdom.
Thank you, Jatin, and thanks Oak Bridge, Vidhi team, and my panelists. This is the second event which we are attending with the Vidhi Utsav, and it's been really good to have learnings and lot of prospects which has been given on this dais today morning also. So which I personally feel, with the changes of law, the way the law is developing, this influential word has also developed a meaning itself to guide each and every person who get influenced, or we can say who is in public, to hear about. The only difference which we need to understand and everyone need to understand, the advice is given to you is a proper advice, or you need to consult a particular person for this. Even a legal advice, similarly a medical advice, you need to be aware about that, who is advising you. Don't follow blindly. That's the concern basically which I want to highlight. And so far you're getting an education ethically is good too. If it becomes an unpracticed, unethical way, then it becomes difficult situation to stop that, and many of us may indulge into a wrongful practice which should be stopped. That's my point of view. We'll discuss more about this. Yeah.
Thank you, Sachin. I think some very important points made in the end by Sachin also, but let's just to pick up from where you left. Inaccuracy and misinformation is a big challenge. I know, Tanya, you've been there in the Instagram field for a very long time, and there's a considerable presence and an audience that you cater to, and your short bit reels have been very popular. Did you ever come across such influencers, especially in the legal realm, where accuracy has taken a backseat?
I think it's very easy to cross that line between, simplifying your content to fit social media's perspective and actually keeping the accuracy. And another thing that, influencers find it difficult is whether you want to go viral, you want your video to reach a lot of people, but if you start to explain things, you probably would not get that. So virality versus credibility is a very important moral topic when it comes to influencing. Me personally, for me, I want to be able to sit in a panel like this and look at all of you all in the eye and have a discussion. So for me, credibility is very, very important in what I do. I ensure that my research is good. I ensure that I'm saying something correctly. But it's not necessarily that everybody does that. So how do you regulate it is a big question. Like, it's a sort of self-regulation that you need to impose on yourself when you're making content, that मैं ऐसे मतलब सब research करके ठीक ठाक ही बोलूँगी, ऐसे कुछ नहीं बोलूँगी. In fact, we were all discussing about a reel that went viral. It got about 40 million views, and there was an advocate who was standing in front of the Supreme Court with his robes on, and he just said a random sentence that did not make sense. It did not make any sense. There was no description, there was no explanation, but it reached almost 40 to 60 million people. So that is wrong in my opinion. There has to be some form of regulation, that you regulate yourself, that this is the kind of content I'm going to make. Either you give the government the power to regulate which is another hot topic we should definitely discuss, or you self-regulate. Now, for self-regulation, you need to have the kind of moral meter to self-regulate. So it's a very fine line. I mean, how do you regulate it is the big question.
Sachin, please.
Adding to the point, basically, if I tell you a regulatory part, basically, if you remember that few days before, a week or 10 days before, SEBI has come with a circular for the investment advisor. Anyone giving an investment advice should be registered with SEBI. So purpose of this entire prospect of building a regulation or a self-regulation regulation was this, that influencer who is guiding a market, basically investment by the public, he should be registered so that the advice goes proper and genuine, should not be misrepresented. That's the plan, and misguided. So similarly, see what happens basically if you see our followers basically. I'll just remember a background, nothing quoting anyone. One of the priests basically, I remember when I was in 2010 around, I was traveling from Pune to Delhi. That time Delhi has only Terminal 1, took A and D, departure and arrival. So when I came out, there were hundreds of thousands of people running. When what happened, who is there, who is coming with, the followers in India. So we just got to know one of the priests, I am not naming that, he is traveling and thousands of people are lying there. Why? Because they are followers. Similarly, influencers also are people who have followers and people follow blindly. And if I give you examples which I talked about, 4-5 examples what recently happened and what has happened. One person on a media for a legal site says a brand can be patented. A brand can be patented. I think so every law graduate knows a brand can be trademarked, not been patented, unless until there's a process defined on that. So just have information I'm giving. Similarly, someone says a matrimonial dispute can be resolved in a month. No court can give a rule in 1 month unless until the process is followed. GST came in 2017, which I talked about. GST came in 2017. People influencing that says that small business units don't need GST certificates. So what happened? The entire community of small business houses didn't went for registration and they were penalized. So these are the things which are there. And for that purpose, yes, there needs to be checks and balances. Either BCI, CI should come with, or a regulatory body should come with, or self-regulatory body should be defined. What is going to be a influencer, who is going to be influencer, what knowledge he has specifically, expertise on the field, and then he should come forward. Like Tanya is a lawyer basically, and she's been giving these lectures because she's a lawyer, she knows his responsibility, accountability, and this is what the lack of accountability is making difference, which we require to fill in.
Jayant, if I could get your take on this, because you've been there on LinkedIn and a completely different platform. What do you think as to whether this is the same parameter and criteria on LinkedIn, or you have a completely different kind of an audience there?
So LinkedIn is quite different from both Instagram and Twitter. And my reason for being on that platform was simply because at the time, I think now Twitter has also increased the word limit, was to give me the liberty and the freedom to express myself in more than perhaps 60 characters. And this I'm telling you 2018, when I just, at the insistence of my staff, said I should start writing something because they said your word as a lawyer mean a lot to the society. Now, when we sit in an auditorium like this, we can converse, we can brainstorm, and we can exchange ideas. But when you're writing something, especially as a lawyer, practicing lawyer, then you have to be careful because LinkedIn is a professional platform. So it is full of people from different professional background, not just from law, but from different walks of life. And if you put something incorrect, or if you put something which is perhaps may turn out to be controversial, then you have to watch yourself. What happens, I think, perhaps in the domain of Twitter and Instagram, is that they're catering to a younger crowd, if I may say so. And with the youth, the problem is not so much with the influencers, because they know what their target audience is, but the people who are getting influenced. Because young people initially were getting influenced from Bollywood or Hollywood, and now that limelight somewhere has been taken by the social media giants, if I may say so. Now, if somebody with a visual appeal, with the appeal of the words, can influence your mind, then I think we are on a dangerous territory. I cannot find faults either with the influencer or with the government at all times, because as a society, we have to question our own upbringing and sensibility from time to time. If today I want to start a handle on Twitter or on Instagram and on purpose want to give misinformation, knowing that my target audience is either not going to read it, verify it, unlike the media giants here who, before publishing anything in a newspaper, have to completely vet it once, twice, or thrice before the editor puts it on paper. Now, this is the problem between social media and traditional media. Like every day, and because we have a lot of youth here, I stopped watching news on national television about 10 years ago. But I make it a point that every day I read at least 7 papers, including Hindi, English, and business papers. Now, why do I do it? It's not because I'm a lawyer. It helps you as an individual to realize where the society is going, what is being reported in different papers, be it business, English daily, or a Hindi newspaper, कि खबरें क्या आ रही हैं. खबरें समाज को क्या जा रही हैं और समाज का दर्पण है खबरें. तो खबरें जा क्या रही हैं. As opposed to social media. If I want to today, right after this event, take a picture and put it on my LinkedIn feed, I may get about 500 likes. पर उस likes का मायना क्या है? You know, anybody can today stand before Supreme Court in a robe and get a picture clicked. Now that's the role of every lawyer. हर lawyer तो बहस करने जा रहा है ना, तो robe ही पहनता है. Advocates Act कहता है आप ये dress पहनेंगे. But then to give an image to the public, look, I went to Supreme Court and I argued a matter and this is how I look in a robe. I think we need to draw a line somewhere. So a responsible advocacy and responsible influencing the people, if I may use the word influencing, I think it's everybody's task, not just the people who are sitting here, but also the people who are reading us on a daily basis.
Thanks. Deepika, if I could get your understanding, because you are there on Twitter, now X, all over, and also a completely different platform. How is the audience there, and how is influencing as in general? How do you view influencing on that platform in terms of ethical considerations, as everybody has talked of?
So, I think when it comes to X, something which has recently happened, which I think makes this platform different from all other platforms, is community notes. And I think community notes. So, if you're putting out anything, and if you're putting out a lie, then there's a community of people who verify the content that goes there. As in, you can flag a certain post to the community, and the community then verifies whether there is a lie in that or not. And then it adds, if it's a lie, then you will have a community note added. For example, I'll give you a very recent example. I think day before yesterday, there was an earthquake. Somebody posted a video saying this happened outside my house, when it was a video from 2 years ago from some other country. So the community notes were added that this is a video from this place, happened at this point. So immediately people can identify that what is being told to them is not the truth. But that is, I don't think so, that is available on any other platform, right? That is not there on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook also. So I think that ways X, I think, has at least addressed misinformation to a large extent. But I would totally agree with Jayant ji over here that it's not just the responsibility of creators, influencers, it's the responsibility of people as well to be wise audience. Do not believe everything that is told to you by a creator or an influencer, especially for young advocates, for young law students. I think it is very, very important to be not moved by anything that is coming across to you in the legal domain as well. There are people who are going to any extent to get, views and likes and go viral. I don't think so. This is a very, very noble profession, and while there are a lot of people who are making it full of entertainment or trying to make it full of entertainment for people, but I don't think so that really aligns. So it is on the audience as well to actually verify what is being told to them rather than just being influenced by what is being told to them.
Thank you. So my understanding of influencers, legal influencers, before coming here, before I did all my little research, was that who are on social media are only influencers. But I do remember a statement that had been time and again, narrated in many of the classes, that lawyers are public opinion makers. So this has been there from the very start. I think even pre-independence and post that. Do you feel influencers are limited to social media, or do you think anybody could be an influencer to anybody? Like, for example, We always see celebrities, they may have millions of followers, but they may not be able to create that sort of a trend as in a organic and a very serious social media influencer like Tanya or Deepika could. So what do you, Tanya, if you could just share your thoughts as to how big of an ambit is of an influencer? Ambit, like for example, could a lawyer just be practicing in a court could be an influencer? Could a teacher, academician be an influencer? Could somebody doing legal aid in a village on a monthly basis and not posting that on social media could be an influencer?
Yes, absolutely. Anybody who's, if I can influence even 10 people sitting here, I am an influencer. I feel if you can influence even one person in your life, you're an influencer. But the term that is marketed as an influencer, that's a different term because you're out there in the public making content for the public. But like Suvirji said, that anybody who's impacted your life, I mean, we look at our mentors, we look at our lecturers, somebody you've seen in the court who you look at and you say, that's who I want to be tomorrow. He is influencing you, so he's an influencer too. In the real sense. I mean, I would call them the real influencers. We are just there doing our bits, and we've been termed as influencers, so I'm going to take it, but I think you're right there. Anybody can be an influencer.
Thanks. Sachinji, because you're not there on social media, I couldn't track you there, but I'm not sure in case you're there on some other name. But you're there in the corporate field everywhere, you're there on all events, contributing here and there. So I think you are an influencer, not in this category on the social media circle, but you've been pretty influential in the corporate sector field. So what do you think of this?
So, what rightly said that, see, what is influencer? If I tell a law, ASCII came with the law, digital influencer rules basically in 2021, which defined influencer first time in the history basically, that any person who is influencing someone through a media, he has to follow certain rules. That becomes an influencer basically. But definitely, as I told, anyone can be influencer. If I can influence the Vidhi Utsav I'm today sitting, Vikesh is sitting here, I can influence him in the evening about some talks of mine. That's influence, and he gets something out of me. That's a learning for everyone. That's how influencing is there. But whether I am putting up those things rightly or wrongly, that needs to be concerned and that needs to be taken care by the person. What expertise I own, what subject knowledge I have, whether I am able to give him a proper guidance or proper wordings, that needs to be explained by the person who is sitting around. That's what is there. And influencing a person, an influencer, basically what his work is basically, if I tell you, his work is to educate person with accountability, with a trust, which he need to build. Yes, the trust is there. Those things need to be main stones of that. But he should, as a legal fraternity, you also know, as a BCI rule says about that, a lawyer cannot solicit the business. So he cannot solicit, he can make an awareness and education of the system. If you go to the step forward and start soliciting, means then there is an interest coming up. That's what. Right?
I'll give.
I trust because of you only.
I just wanted to share two instances which I think can be very meaningful. I remember reading about a very, very young boy who I think was pursuing law as well. He realized that he was from a small town, a village perhaps, and his village had a lot of problems. And he realized the power of Twitter. And he saw that, there are a lot of grievances that are getting resolved through Twitter. He was a student, so, for a bare minimum of, I think, 10 rupees or 15 rupees, he started putting out the grievances of people from his village on Twitter. And eventually, he actually got help to people through the help of Twitter. When I talk about legal, I want to share this instance where I personally think that something that was on social media actually influenced the court. And I'll share this in detail. So there was a case in Karnataka High Court where a woman had filed 10 rape cases on different men. She had married multiple men and filed rape cases on multiple men as well. And so she was a habitual abuser of law. And this 10th case guy, she had filed a 498A on him after getting married to him with threats of a rape case. So Justice Nagaprasanna was hearing this case, and I had actually been working on this case since last 2-3 years. I knew the victims, I knew the history, and I knew a lot about the case. Uh, I made a social media post when this hearing was going on, the quash hearing was going on. Just the order was pending. This woman was not turning up in the court despite several, summons being issued to her from the High Court. She would not turn up. And we got to know one of the hearings was on YouTube. We saw the hearing. And I wrote an open letter to addressing Justice Nagaprasanna, saying that this is not just one case happening in Karnataka, but I have been working on these cases since last 2-3 years. There are some women who have filed 15 rape cases, some women who have filed 19 rape cases. And in my open letter, I included judgments from various other courts where such cases had been dealt with. And I requested, Honorable Judge, that, just do not quash the case. That is, you'd be giving the relief to the petitioner or the victim in this case, but then this person needs to be stopped from abusing the process of law. I don't know if it happened because of my open letter or not, but I would like to believe so. All the judgments that we had shared and all the instances that we had shared from other high courts actually made it to the final judgment. And one of the suggestions that we had recommended went over there. So even in legal community, social media can actually play a very, very major role. And if you are somebody who is in the field of influencing, where you are very justice oriented, you have immense potential to, help people and get them justice.
I think what just Deepika said, in the Ranveer Lavadia case also, in Obiter, I think the Honorable Bench had, I'm not sure if it is part of the order, but it had made certain observations that we are aware that this video is there online. We are aware that this is not original. It has been copied from Australian, some reel. So just like Deepika said, the Honorable Benches also as much are aware of the social media space. But because this is very recent and this is there on everybody's mind and you all are there in the space, what was this entire controversy of India's Got Latent and where did things go wrong? What do you feel is the fine line? And what are just your thoughts on this? Tanya, if you could just start.
I had recently made a post on this because a lot of my followers were like, can you comment on this, please? I don't know, my comments might be controversial or not to everybody's opinion, but I believe that it was because a certain person said it. India's Got Latent is a show which people have been watching for a while now. Of course, it's been coming on social media, the video clips have been circulating, but that's okay. Everybody expected Samay Raina to do it because he is Samay Raina and that's the kind of content he makes. But nobody expected Ranveer Alabadia to say something like that. It wasn't a big deal. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you youngsters sitting there would be like, what's the big deal? Hum aise jokes to crack hi karte hain. Maybe, that's true. But coming from that person, it's that integrity of the person. He has a perfectly curated image on social media, which he has curated over a certain number of years to be a Sanatani, to be a particular, he calls politicians from a particular party and interviews them. He asks perfectly curated questions. So he has himself created this aura around him. And then him coming in, stating something like that was out of, I guess that's why people reacted. And why not? Why not? You have the freedom of speech. All of us have the freedom of speech. But where is that line? Who gets to decide whether you have crossed that line or not? It's we people who are consuming the content. So if we have a problem, we can dissent to it. That's absolutely okay. Now the second question here is, we have the right to dissent. Yes, everybody showed their dissent. Everybody showed their consent. Everybody showed that we really like him. He's never said anything wrong. But the fine line is this case worthy of going to the court? Is this case something that needs to be discussed? Is this worth taxpayers' time? Is this worth Supreme Court judges' time? That is what needs to be discussed, which I feel was not required. If you want to show dissent, the public has the right to show dissent. Yes, the public also has a right to file a case, but was it necessary? Absolutely not. I mean, that's my two bits about it.
Thank you. Jayant, if I could just ask you, because there was an argument made by Ranveer's counsel there in Supreme Court, whereby they said that this is a only subscriber content, so it is pay-per-view. So what are the legal nuances in case, because I'm sure this is not the first time that such an incident has cropped up. Of course, this is the one that has gained highlight. So if you could just walk us through the legal nuances around everything.
Let me digress from the topic for a second and ask the audience. Everybody has heard of Zerodha here? Just a show of hands. Everybody has heard of Zerodha? You watched the podcast by Nitin Kamath? Yes? Now, there was a billionaire who was invited, I think in a hotel room, I'm forgetting the gentleman's name, and he put an N95 mask, N95 mask, and then he had to abruptly leave the podcast saying that I cannot breathe because the air quality is deteriorating, right? Now, the logic was, he said the pollution and the environment law, especially in our country, have been taken for a toss, and the poisoning of air has been normalized. Now, the same thing happens in a podcast or in a show like India Got Talent, or Latent, sorry, where abusing has been normalized. It is toxic. No parent, when we all go to school, then to law school or colleges, and then we come to court, we don't use this language. We call this language unparliamentary language. अभद्र भाषा इसको कही जाती है. उसकी एक वजह है कि आप अपने माता या पिता से, अपने भाई बहन से, ठीक है, लड़ाई झगड़ा हो, गुस्से में आप कॉलर पकड़ लें, तू मैं हो जाए, गाली गलौज हो जाए, एक अलग चीज़ है. लेकिन किसी अभद्र भाषा को एक ऐसे माध्यम से, यूट्यूब का पॉडकास्ट आप कह लीजिए, क्योंकि वी आर लिविंग इन अ वेरी हाइपर कनेक्टेड वर्ल्ड. जो यूट्यूब में जाता है वो ट्विटर में भी जाता है, जो ट्विटर में जाता है वो इंस्टाग्राम रील्स में भी जाता है. सो इट कीप सर्कुलेटिंग एंड दैट इज़ हाउ वायरलिटी इज़ प्रोड्यूस फॉर एनी कंटेंट. तो जब ऐसी चीज़ होती हैं, एंड as Suvi rightly pointed out, that even the Supreme Court judges are watching this. Now, please understand, when I say Supreme Court of India, I don't mean a court based out of Delhi. I mean a court, the highest court of the country, which is situated in Delhi. India is not New Delhi. Please understand this. जब देश की बात होती है, देश के समाज की बात होती है, संस्कृति की बात होती है, तो दिल्ली के बाहर का भी समाज भारतीय समाज माना जाता है. जो NRI विदेश में बैठे हैं, जो इसको देख रहे हैं, वॉच कर रहे हैं, वो भी बोलते हैं कि क्या चल रहा है. एक ठीक है, रणवीर अलाहाबादी एक फेमस पॉडकास्ट है, उनके कुछ कहने पे न्यूज़ हुई, चर्चा हुई, FIR कट गई, उनको रिलीफ मिल गया. इस पे सुप्रीम कोर्ट डिबेट करेगा, डेलिबरेट करेगा, होना भी चाहिए. लेकिन आर वी नॉर्मलाइजिंग दीज थिंग्स इन द कंट्री? आर द लॉज सो वीक इन द कंट्री दैट एनीबडी कैन कम ट्रोल यू? बिकॉज दिस इज वेयर द यूथ इज गोइंग टू लर्न फ्रॉम देयर मेंटर्स. दीज आर द मेंटर्स. द नेक्स्ट जनरेशन इज द मेंटर. आप उसको जेन Z बोलें, जेन Y बोलें, आई डोंट नो व्हाट इज द राइट टर्म. पर कोई इंसान अगर आपको गलत चीज़ डंके की चोट पे सिखा रहा है और आप सीख रहे हैं, और आपको सीख के लगता है कि नहीं, गाली देना तो एकदम फैशनेबल है, या किसी को आपत्तिजनक टिप्पणी देना फैशनेबल है, और वहाँ पे मैं सिर्फ पुरुष या स्त्री की बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ, क्योंकि पैनल हैड ऑल जेंडर्स, और जिस तरह से बातें हो रही हैं, और मैंने भी देखे यूट्यूब के सारे इनके ये जो इंडिया गॉट टैलेंट, आई हैव सीन ऑल द 6 एपिसोड्स. मैं तो 2x में देखता हूँ यूट्यूब की दुनियादारी में चल क्या रहा है. तो जब आप देखते हैं कोई चीज़ें तो हास्यास्पद होती हैं, दे आर जेन्युइनली फनी, येस इट इज़ अ फनी जोक, but then where do you stop? That becomes a question. Where do I stop myself, either as an influencer or as somebody who thinks that I am a responsible citizen, not just of the country, but of the society? Where do I stop? Where do I draw the line? I think that is where perhaps the courts now today need to interpret, without maybe, let's say, unnecessarily punishing someone, but definitely drawing guidelines that, look, a wrong is a wrong, and we as a society need to put it out. We don't need to send somebody to jail and say that, look, you please spend 10 years behind the bar. That's not the idea. But the idea of any court of law is to send the right signal to the society for whom they are accountable.
Can I add? I'm in absolute agreement with what Jen sir said, but on this particular judgment, Suvir, I personally think Supreme Court had the opportunity to comment on the larger issue as well. The content has deteriorated so much. I think the actual issue was to what extent do we control content and to what level has it degraded down to. A lot of people have said, and rightly said, we are in times where apps like Ullu, Alt Balaji are serving the worst kind of filth and are directed to the younger generation. I think what they are doing is far, far, far more sick and having a much, much larger impact than these very dark jokes, which of course cannot be, which cannot be explained or justified. I personally think that the words used were, in my opinion, very harsh. You know, Ranveer Alabadia was called perverted mind, that you have shamed the parents, you have shamed sisters, you have shamed mothers, and you're running something with your henchmen. I think those were very harsh words for, and despite accepting that they actually parroted something which has been parroted by somebody else before. So not cutting a sorry figure for Ranveer Alabadia here, he should have been responsible. He has such a huge following, and like Jayant sir rightly said, these kids are emulating all of this, so where do we stop? But I think it is a missed opportunity, both by the way media has gone after this case and also the judgment from the Supreme Court, as in, yes, we, I think, are at time where content needs to be thought of regulation or where do we stop. But instead of going in a right direction with this discussion, for example, in Australia, it has banned under 16 people from using social media apps at all. That's a fruitful discussion, that's a fruitful step. But here, I think everything just got focused so much on Ranveer that eventually that poor chap now has death threats. So, was that the intent? Will things change now? I don't know. But I completely agree with you, Tanya, that it was the person rather than the issue.
Also regarding Jayant, he spoke about regulating the content. My question is, how do you regulate such content? India's Got Latent is the highest paid channel, a subscriber channel. It makes the most amount of money. So that means a lot of people are watching it. So it says a lot about our community. It says a lot about the people that this is the kind of content they want to watch. I mean, what do you do about it?
Right.
How do you regulate such content? I mean, that's...
So adding to this point, see, understand the point. The negative publicity is also publicity. Understand the point. The attention of the public, to draw public attention, this publicity has been done. That is also a part which can be played around to gain the followers, gain the market. Today's market says about this. But yes, definite line to be drawn. Yes, drawn. Multiple courts have drawn the lines. Delhi High Court, I just spoke to you also, the Jidus matter of Prashant Desai, very categorically stated this. What is freedom of speech and what are the restrictions? That need to be followed by the influencer while influencing the public. And when you are influencing something, what the small complaint was that person said that compliance has a high sugar level. The court interpreted that, discussed that, even if he has got a degree from Harvard Medical, said that you have not authenticated proper research on this or giving this such comments on market, because people will follow you and this will derogate the brand. So somewhere draw the lines. The law is required, the enforcement is required with a high level enforcement. Means anyone can go and talk about something is not possible. Someone has to take guard of that. Yes, there is a guard and we have to follow. Every time, why I am just thinking of what Jayant is saying, that every time why you think of the Supreme Court will come and give a law. Why can't a law be framed at the day one and then start with? We're struggling with that. I'll just tell you a small example. I went and met the MIB, someone in MIB, couple of days. And we talked about the same subject, what content has been played and how childs are viewing those content in the Netflix, Flipkart, and this all social media platforms. The law is so defined that everyone says that we'll have a protections of child and everything is placed. But even though the passwords and IDs been given by the parents only. How? The parents are giving their own IDs. Yes, you take an OTP and start logging into it. Someone has to check them. There is a responsibility of not only the media provider, content provider. It's a responsibility of person, it's the responsibility of parents also to look into what their child are looking into with the age limits. They have to follow, and they don't give those distracting things to the hand of child so that they get distracted. Today, a 3-year-old child don't take food without seeing some cartoon in the hand. Everyone has putting up laptop, movie or something in this. The habit has been gone by you guys only and we guys only. We need to change our own selves. That's my point is.
So I think Deepika just said it is a missed opportunity because we're in the legal field. I think it is yet not. So we can't be this premature. Deepika, you do have hope, and because this everybody is cognizant of the matter. But Tanya, if I could just ask you, there was another argument made by Ranveer's counsel. It is not about the content, so this is something different. So his counsel made an argument that because this was a subscriber viewed content only, a part of the video has been picked up and somebody else has posted. So such sort of picking up of material of somebody and posting that there, I think we see on a daily basis. Like for example, VC is open in every courts, and most of the high courts do have them in operation. So people just pick snippets out of it and they just post that. So what are your views of legal influencers picking up court proceedings and just highlighting that part which they find suitable and leaving the rest the entire thing?
Actually, with the onset of legal influencing, like if you go back in time, like let's say 2-3 years back, right? How many people who are not in the field of law were actually listening to judgments or actually reading judgments? I would say nobody. But currently with bar and bench, live law, people like us who talk about legal judgments, there's so much more interest and access to the public, to the courtrooms. So I feel there is a lot more accountability required, because sometimes, judges do, while passing judgments, pass comments which necessarily are not part of the judgment, right? But they are taken and quoted, that so-and-so judge has quoted this particular thing, which may not be morally correct, or it may be sexist. So it becomes a big deal when it comes out to the public. So putting VCs out in the public has, of course, it gives information out to the public, it gives access to the public, but also it questions the judges. So now if there's a judgment passed, it entirely depends on how a bar and bench or a live law is putting that headlines out, because even they somewhere want their post to go viral. So I've read so many judgments, the headlines don't make sense. And then the people who are reading that post, they're not opening the judgment and reading the judgment, they're only looking at the headlines and passing a comment. So there lies great accountability also on the people in our community and field who have to ensure that they're putting out the right things. And even now, judges are held accountable for whatever they've said in the courtrooms. It's not just anymore about passing a random comment. So yes, the accountability increases when information goes out to the public.
So before we open this to the audience, Jayant, the case is not over till it's actually over. Arguments, 45 minutes arguments cannot be, broken down into 2-minute snippets. So what do you feel of this?
एक्चुअली सवाल बहुत बढ़िया है आपका, और मैं ऑडियंस तक ये बात पहुंचाना चाहता हूँ कि YouTube में पहले तो आपका ये सवाल था सब्सक्रिप्शन बेस्ड. लेट मी आंसर दैट. उसमें होता क्या, देयर आर 2 मॉडल्स ऑफ मेकिंग मनी ऑन YouTube. आइदर यू कैन सिंपली सेट अ सब्सक्राइब टू यूट्यूब चैनल इफ़ यू हैव अ जीमेल अकाउंट, तो आप सब्सक्रिप्शन करेंगे तो जो जैसे जैसे नया एपिसोड आता है आपको नोटिफिकेशन आती है. एक होता है इफ़ यू आर सपोर्टिंग अ पर्टिकुलर इन्फ्लुएंसर और अ यूट्यूबर और अ पॉडकास्टर, तो उनका सब्सक्रिप्शन होगा 20 रुपये, 50 रुपये, 100 रुपये, आप वो दीजिए. तो जो कंटेंट बाद में जनता के लिए होता है वो पहले आपके लिए होता है. जैसे प्री स्क्रीनिंग होती है, इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि एक्सक्लूसिव कंटेंट और आप तक नहीं पहुंचेगा. दिस इज वाई द कंट्रोवर्सी अटेन द लेवल ऑफ कंट्रोवर्सी, क्योंकि अब 6 के 6 एपिसोड डिलीट हो गए बिकॉज दे वर अवेलेबल फॉर पब्लिक एट लार्ज. दूसरा, आपने सवाल किया कि जुडिशरी के जो स्निपेट्स आ रहे हैं, अब अलग अलग चैनल्स खुल गए, और वो चैनल हम और आप नहीं खोल रहे हैं. वो गांव में बैठा कोई या देहात में बैठा कोई या किसी कस्बे कूचे में बैठा कोई लड़का जिसको पैसा कमाना है यूट्यूब से, वो खोल रहा है क्योंकि उसको यूट्यूब से पैसा कमाना आ गया. तो कहते हैं ना, वो अक्षय कुमार कहते हैं, बाबू भैया पैसे का खेल है सारा. सो दिस इज़ द प्रॉब्लम. वो कह रहा है जज साहब ने फलाने फलाने को लताड़ा, पुलिस वाले की वर्दी उतारी. दिस इज़ द कैप्शन. सो मच सो दैट कल एक जगह आया कि इस महिला ने बहुत बढ़िया आर्ग्यूमेंट किए अपनी कस्टडी के लिए, और जो थंबनेल लगा हुआ है उसमें एक साउथ की हीरोइन है, जो बेचारी महिला आ रही है, वो एक मेड है, जस्ट टू ग्रैब द अटेंशन ऑफ पीपल. नाउ दिस इज़ रॉन्ग. अगर आपको वास्तविकता दिखानी है समाज की, तो आप मिर्च मसाला मत लगाइए. आप सिर्फ जजेस के लिए बैटिंग मत कीजिए. वो भी इंसान है, वो भी पहले वकील थे, उसके बाद जज बने. और आप ये कह रहे हैं कि आपने एक IAS की वर्दी उतार दी, आपने पुलिस वाले को किया. ठीक है, जहाँ चीज़ें गलत हो रही हैं उजागर होनी चाहिए. मैं जुडिशरी के लिए बैटिंग नहीं कर रहा हूँ यहाँ पे. लेकिन 10 मिनट का वीडियो बना के, 5 मिनट का वीडियो बना के अगर आप सोचते हैं कि आप आम जनता को कानून समझा सकते हैं, तो ये थोड़ा सा गड़बड़ है. क्योंकि कानून की जो इतने यंग बच्चे यहाँ बैठे हैं, 5-5 साल की आप पढ़ाई कर रहे हैं, 3 साल के लिए आप कॉलेज में जाते हैं, आप ट्यूशन फीस देते हैं, आप इंटर्नशिप्स कर रहे हैं, आप इतनी सारी चीज़ सीख के फिर एक रिस्पॉन्सिबल तरीके से फाइल पढ़ के आर्ग्यू करते हैं. पर यूट्यूब में इतनी मेहनत नहीं चाहिए. यूट्यूब में आपको एक वाईफाई चाहिए. जियो ने तो ऑलरेडी बर्बाद किया हुआ देश को. बाकी जितने फ्री का वाईफाई आ गया, अब वो BSNL दे रही है. आपके 4G लगे हैं सबके, आप डालेंगे और डाल के फट से वो रिले होती है इन्फॉर्मेशन. नाउ वेयर इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल यूट्यूबिंग और जर्नलिज्म इन द कंट्री? जो आम बच्चा कहाँ से सीखेगा ये सब चीज़ें? उसको सही और गलत का कौन बताएगा मायना? दूसरा, जैसे सचिन जी ने बताया, आप HT मीडिया हेड करते हैं. छोटे बच्चे, और छोटे बच्चे आई मीन 16 एंड लेस, या जो और स्कूल गोइंग है, जो 3rd क्लास में 5th क्लास में, हाउ डू यू इंश्योर कि मॉनिटरिंग होगी? जो पेरेंट अपने बच्चों को फ़ोन दे रहा है उसका ऑलरेडी कंसेंट जा चुका है ऑनलाइन कि आई एम 18 ईयर्स एंड ओवर. तो जब उसके बच्चा खाना खाते हुए या माँ बाप कहीं और लगे हुए हैं, वो देखते हुए बच्चा अगर सर्फिंग कर रहा है और कुछ एडल्ट कंटेंट उस बच्चे के सामने आ जाए, तो उस पर क्या असर पड़ेगा? वो तो छोड़िए, आप कई बार देखते होंगे गाड़ी चलाते हुए लोग फ़ोन को सामने रख के एक्सप्रेसवे में गाड़ी चला दें, मूवीज़ देख रहे हैं यूट्यूब पे. दिस इज़ डेंजरस नॉट जस्ट फॉर योर ओन लाइफ एंड लिम्स बट फॉर द अदर पर्सन इज ऑन द रोड. पर किसी को नहीं पड़ी. तो द रेगुलेशन हैज़ टू कम एट डिफरेंट पार्ट्स. हु इज़ द इन्फ्लुएंसर? वी आर इन्फ्लुएंसिंग ईच अदर्स लाइव्स बाय बीइंग ऑन द रोड एंड टेकिंग द कार ऑन अ रन. तो पहले तो समाज को अपने आप से सवाल करना पड़ेगा कि हम कर क्या रहे हैं और हम जा कहाँ रहे हैं. बी इट द बार काउंसिल ऑफ इंडिया और द कोर्ट्स कलेक्टिव or the civil society in general. I think everybody needs to come together for a larger debate and ask ourselves, where are we collectively going wrong as a society?
Right.
ऑल्दो ये एक लार्जर एक पूरी की पूरी हियरिंग को स्निपेट में डालना कैन बी मिसकॉन्स्टिट्यूट समटाइम्स, बट मुझे लगता है दिस होल एस्पेक्ट ऑफ द कोर्ट प्रोसीडिंग्स नाउ बीइंग अवेलेबल फॉर पब्लिक is, I think, an amazing initiative. This may be controversial, but I personally believe that there is very, very less accountability on what happens in our courts, and there needs to be. And with these kind of proceedings, now people are seeing what is happening in a case which may not be happening with them, but which is very important to the society. For example, I remember Karnataka High Court की ही एक judgment थी जिसमें एक lady judge थी. उन्होंने मेंटेनेंस के बारे में, किसी महिला ने 6.5 लाख रुपए पर मंथ मेंटेनेंस मांगी थी. बहुत ही उम्दा जजमेंट दी थी. तो मुझे लगता है कि ऐसा कंटेंट पब्लिकली अवेलेबल होने में एक एस्पिरेशनल वैल्यू भी हो जाती है, दैट इफ़ यू पास ग्रेट जजमेंट्स देन यू नो पीपल आर वॉचिंग यू, एंड आई थिंक दैट समवेयर बेनिफिट्स आवर जुडिशियल सिस्टम, आवर जस्टिस सिस्टम. देयर आर 6 crore और 5 crore केसेस पेंडिंग. देयर आर सम कोर्ट्स वेयर द जजेस डोंट शो अप. मुझे तो लगता है कि हर कोर्ट में कैमरा होना चाहिए और हर प्रोसीडिंग ऑनलाइन होनी चाहिए.
Thank you, Deepika. I think government can resolve access to justice. That is the reason courts are of course cognizant of this fact. So just to end this, we can only invite one question from the audience because the next session the Tar Sahib is here. Just one question maybe from the audience, from a young member, if I could.
My direct question is to all the speakers. You have missed one very important issue. In Parliament, we say there are unparliamentary words. You cannot speak them in Parliament. But outside the Parliament, you can skip it. You did not mention it. I speak 8 languages, 4 Indian, 4 foreigner. तो मैं इनका कुछ मुझे आइडिया है. हम गालियाँ देते हैं और आप सब ने गालियाँ दी हैं कभी ना कभी अपने टाइम में, लेकिन यहाँ नहीं दे रहे. सो देयर इज़ ए प्लेस फॉर दी वर्ड्स. और जितने शब्द हम गाली के बोलते हैं वो सारे डिक्शनरी में हैं. दैट्स क्योंकि हम उनका इस्तेमाल करते हैं, तो इसलिए वो जिंदा हैं. तो आप ये नहीं कह सकते अलाहाबादियाँ जो उसने किया है वो पॉलिटिशियन के नज़दीक है, इसलिए कोर्ट से उसको एकदम मिल गया. अर्नब गोस्वामी को मिल गया, मुझे नहीं मिलता. और अब क्या होगा? वो माफ़ी मांगेगा और छूट जाएगा. और रिक्शा वाला होता तो उसकी जेल हो जाती. सो यू हैव टू ड्रा लाइन्स. आपने किसी ने भी जो ट्रुथ है उसको सामने नहीं रखा. यू हैव पुट योर व्यूज़. वी हैव टू गो टू दी बेसिक, बिकॉज धर्म में आप विश्वास करते हैं. मैं इसकी पूजा पाठ उसकी बात नहीं कर रहा. धर्म का मतलब प्रकृति के नियम, उसमें आप बिलीव करते हैं आप कभी गलती नहीं करेंगे और कभी आपको प्रॉब्लम नहीं आएगी. सो वी हैव टू गो नियर टू दोज लाइन्स विच दिस कंट्री टॉट टू द होल ऑफ द वर्ल्ड. थैंक यू वेरी मच.
Thank you so much. So I think that was more of a learning. So we'll end this session. I'm very grateful to all the panelists here to have spared time, and to Oakbridge Publishing, the entire Vidhi Utsav team, for choosing such a very relevant topic to the young audience. And I hope legal influencing in the coming times, it takes our country to heights which we wish to achieve till 2047, and to good times. Thank you all.
Just get another one.